Okay, that hopefully should be working. This video is private. Yes, there's some people that you know on here too, Alice. So welcome, Alice. This is February 2024. It's the CE5 Europe interview. I'm very, very happy to have been able to get Alice to be with us and speak about something that I find personally very difficult to speak about. You know, what is this experience? And I met Alice, I think it was 2007, and Alice and I, we've passed in and out of our lives many times since then. We met at a Wisdom Keepers Circle in Canada, and I was new there. Alice was very used to how things work. And what I remember distinctly about Alice is that she came in later than everyone else. She looked around and she had this enormous presence. There was just so much energy. There was such an energy that you really don't want to miss that energy. And over time, I found Alice to not be one of many words, but for sure, she had the precise words that were needed at the right time in every moment, and always in the kindest and most inconspicuous of ways. And her perception and acuteness has always had that effect of calming me down. So she was a great support to me when I first came to that Wisdom Keepers Circle and didn't know. I remember standing in a circle outside the sweat lodge, and it was cold. It was Canada, and my feet were getting cold. And Alice just whispered to me what to do. She just knew that I was freezing. So, and as I was telling a friend of mine here in Kenya about the interview, she asked if she could see a picture of Alice. And she just tenderly held my mobile phone and spoke about that beautiful heart that she sees in Alice. So she's an extremely wonderful, beautiful, sincere person. At some point, both Alice and I, we were both instrumental in organizing a global 3-day ceremony with more than 100 people from every continent north of the Arctic Circle in Greenland. And as always, Alice would pave the way and I ran the details. So then after that, Alice came to visit while I was living in Munich. And that is when I saw the shift in her, the shift in, I see energy. So I saw the shift and I felt how her brain had changed, had become stronger and calmer. And I was curious, very curious. But it took me more than a decade to finally go and do this training. And for sure, I could find reasons not to go. You know, I could say it's not in my budget, or I don't have time, or, you know, I'll do it, but I'll do it later. Well, now I understand that the little mind, the ego mind, it knew precisely that it could not control me anymore if I do this training. So ego has all the reasons, and consciousness has the knowing. I knew I wanted to do it, but I didn't until just recently. So the experience is extraordinary, but how to talk about it. So welcome, Alice. Please share with us what you can, and we'll go from there.
Thank you, Una. That's quite an introduction. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. So we're going to start with a presentation I put together to try to explain what it is externalized mind is and what it can do for you or anybody who attends. This is one of the tricky things about it. I've been doing this for 14 years, and somebody will explain it to somebody else. They'll come and they'll have the experience and they'll go, oh, this is not what I imagined it to be. And then even people who've been working in the field for quite some time can describe it, and it's still this nebulous thing that occurs. So let me give it a whirl. I'm going to share my screen with you. There we go. So what External Mind does, it brings modern neuroscience together with ancient techniques, protocols, wisdom, and it blends them together in such an exquisite package that you have access to states of mind that you don't normally in waking consciousness. However, you're able to achieve it and then replicate it after you leave the training. So you're teaching your brain. The whole goal is to optimize your brain and expand your consciousness. The two work hand in glove quite nicely. Oops, previous screen. So the whole idea here is you can compare the 5 days. So it's a 5-day intensive. You're married to us for, say, for example, Monday to Friday. And you're making the same type of progress as if you were doing advanced Zen meditation for 40 years. So this was done based on a Japanese study where they looked at the brain waves of the beginner, the intermediate, and the advanced Zen meditators. And so when you're doing the training, you're watching as your brain changes in that exact same pattern and direction. So underneath everything, we have a psychophysiological principle where every experience we have as human beings, you have an underlying pattern of brainwaves. So if you're anxious, we know that your occipital alpha has diminished. If you're feeling this great joy, we know that you have a burst of alpha. Creativity, you would have alpha and theta. So every experience has a pattern of brainwaves. So the idea that if you change your brainwaves, you change yourself at your level of your identity. And it's not that Una stopped being Una, she had more access to Una. Kareen would have more access to Kareen. So with all the different modalities, etc., you're making some change. It might be a cognitive behavior change. It might be accessing different states. This you're doing at the level of the brainwave, and there's nowhere deeper than that we can work at this point. So having awareness control of how your mind operates allows you to change it and create the reality that you want. I'm going to tap into that a little bit more. So there's twofold mechanism to cognition, where it originates from your mind and where it's directed to your external world, right? So how we are showing up, how we are holding ourselves impacts our experience in the external world. And of course, we impact the external world from our experience. This is something I put in here because I find it really important to understand the dynamic between our relationship to our internal state and the external. What we found with COVID, for example, people were too much in their internal. They were isolated without the benefit of community, etc. So many people withdrawn within. We also have social media where people, especially youth, get caught up in the external world. And when we look at someone's brain, when we take a look at your brain, we can see somebody who is maybe too wrapped up in the internal, or maybe too wrapped up in the external. And finding that balance between the two is crucial to living a very balanced, happy life. So if you're too caught up in the internal, you might be having a lot of rumination, there's insularity happening. And if you're caught up too much in the external, then to one extreme, the outside world determines your mood. It determines your thoughts and your behaviors. So it's finding that fulcrum where you can, glide through both states very easily. There's times to go inside, and there's times to be part of the external. So what do we do at Externalized Mind? The first thing we do is we take a 19-channel EEG of your brain, and we analyze it. We create a brain map, and it can tell us what's going on with you in general as an overview. We look at the absolute power. So this person in the top row, you can see that they have a reduction in beta, so and a reduction in delta. So these people, this person has a lot of sleep issues. We can see in the coherence line, where over on the beta side, you can see those red lines. That's a hyper coherence, where it's just fired too much. So this guy was super effective in life. However, when he came home, he couldn't shut it off. He couldn't relax, which is typical of entrepreneurs. So we employ neurofeedback. And what neurofeedback is, it's real-time, immediate feedback on your own brain. So if you were to imagine that you were born deaf, you would have no idea how powerful your voice is. You can change the tone, you can change the pitch, you can change the volume to make yourself understood. All of a sudden, you're getting feedback on your brain, and it's like, oh, all this additional information helps you learn how to navigate it, how to move within it. So we do two different trainings. One is CAP training. So when we looked at your brain map, we saw maybe where you had weaknesses or maybe even your strength. We target those and we mitigate the weaknesses and we enhance your strengths. So say somebody who has anxiety, or they have maybe they're a slow reader. So whatever it is, we have these targeted trainings to address that part of yourself. So it compares where you are to a normative database of people who show zero clinical symptoms, and it brings you in line. Then we have something we call gap training, and this is frequency training that assists you to get out of your own way. We all have issues and traumas and belief systems that hold us back. So if I stuck you with neurofeedback and I said, okay, go ahead, you're going to sit there for an hour or two, whatever, you would get benefit. But the problem is you get in your own way. So we have techniques and tools and protocols tied to the technology to get you out of that space. So throughout the week, you're facilitated, and to make sure that you're getting the most out of the training. It's 5 full days, and your meals and supplements are provided. Supplements are for your brain, for making sure that your brain has enough juice to run the week. Let's take a look at what we're looking at in terms of a brain. We're looking at the absolute power, and we're looking at the coherence. And this is where we're comparing it to the normative database to see how you're functioning. So this person, you can see that they have a deficit in alpha. So they might be experiencing depression. They might find themselves really tired at the end of the day. We look at their delta, where they have elevation in delta. So they're using a lot of brain power, and probably, yeah, this person is probably really tired at the end of the day. So you look at their theta and then the frontals. So this is where the decision making is all happening. They're probably not as effective as they would like to be. If we look at coherence, we see that the networks that are employed, so our brain is employing all different networks for different activities, and you want them to be able to fire on and off when you need them, and you want them to be as efficient as possible. So in this case, if you look at the delta, theta, you can see that they're slow connections. It's really slow to come online. Alpha, not too bad, a little bit in the frontal region, central. And then the high beta, you can look over there where it's a combination of slow and fast. So too much and not enough. So what we want to do with our CAP training is normalize it so that that person has more optimum brain functioning. You can do more. It's like the hierarchy of needs. You know, you have to at first make sure you're fed. You have to make sure that you have, a place to live, etc., before you can start moving into more spiritual expansion and shifts in consciousness, etc. Likewise with your brain, if your brain's not functioning optimally, it's really hard to reach different states, the more expanded states. So here, this person here optimizing the coherence, you can see that they're hypercoherence. They have a little bit of hypo, moved into a little bit hypo. So that's an improvement there from left to right. And the one below, it was hypocoherence, and you can see where it's pretty clear. A little bit still left, but fairly clear. So this is a real life case example where somebody came in and changed their brain. So what we do is after you do the training, wherever we are, say 3 to 6 months after you did the training, you would come in and we would do another brain map and show you what's changed. So here's somebody, you can look on the left, their baseline. So on day 1, you take a look and you can see their delta, alpha, theta, beta, and high beta, gamma. This person was always on. She felt like that she walked through life and she felt like she had to record every little thing in order to share it with somebody, like document her life. She didn't really have an idea why she did that. She just did it. That's the way her brain operated. And she would work, super effective. And then she'd crash for 3 days to a week, and then get up and repeat the pattern again. So she was overusing her brain. Her brain was firing all the time. By the end of the week, we can look and see how much clearer her brain is. You can see that all the brain waves are organized. Everybody's in their own swim lane. Her alpha has gone up quite a bit and very sustained. So this person is much calmer. Her mind is quieter. One of my biggest takeaways, there have been so many, but one of the biggest takeaways I've had is a quiet mind. And there's nothing I would trade for that. It's worth all the tea in China. This person came in, and you can see over on the left that the alpha line is hard to distinguish, and all the brainwaves are intertangled. So what we know is we want to see this person change so that, first of all, that alpha is increased and more sustained. So alpha is about love and joy and happiness and clarity of mind and creativity, all those good things. So we want to see that rise, and we want to see everybody in their own lane. So we look over on day 5 and look how high the alpha is and how sustained it is. She's able to carry it. Here, on the first day, her alpha started towards the end of the session, started coming up, but it wasn't sustained. It would drop in and out. And then here on day 5, she was able to maintain that. And we can see that the theta is now above beta for most of it. So everybody's in the right order and lane. So this person left accessing more states, happier, more energy, and she can probably tell you more herself. So freedom and choice. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. This is from Viktor Frankl. So what happens when you do it? There's 250 milliseconds between the external stimulation and our internal response. And when you fine-tune that, when you calibrate that, all of a sudden you notice there's choice. So you're not responding all over the place, or reacting, I should say. You're not reacting, but you're able to choose if you want to respond or not respond, and how you want to respond. That is freedom. That is where you are able to really look at choice. I'll give you an example. If you wanted to change some kind of behavior, say there was something you were doing, you were acting out in a certain way, and you want to change that, and you would approach it from a cognitive standpoint. So you'd try to make a change, and you'd like, say you yelled at the checkout clerks and you wanted to stop yourself from doing that. So you might find yourself at a checkout, and then all of a sudden the impulse to be disagreeable comes up, and you notice it and you back away. And the next time, oh no, you lose it. And then you leave, you go, oh my gosh, I did it again. This. What happens when you do the training, you're doing it, remember, at the level of the brainwave. So you're removing the very triggers that initiate behavior you don't want. So you'll go through 3 months and you're not even cognizant that you're behaving a certain way. You'll look back 3 months and go, oh my gosh, I used to yell at the checkout clerk 3 times every week. Now it's been 3 times over 3 months, like nothing. So you're removing the very triggers, again, at the level of the brainwave. So your benefits include your improved relationships. The number one improvement is relationships, and primarily with yourself. And as a consequence, it changes your relationships with everybody else around you. Much better decision-making skills. Of course, your brain's optimized, so it's functioning better. So you might have more energy, you might not be tired at the end of the day. You're able to do more with less. Life is that much easier. Quieter mind, my fave. Ego awareness. You get to discover who you are and who you're not. At one point in the 5-day session, people will have a pop where all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have an ego, but that's not who I am. And that's where your relationship to yourself changes. Higher IQ and EQ, more creativity, more resilience, less depression and anxiety, and the list goes on quite a bit from there. So at home, so these are the processes we know that work in terms of changing the brain and putting yourself in states that are more useful, more helpful, more happiness. One is gratitude, and you can see it on the brain waves when somebody has an experience of gratitude. So the other big thing is not only practice giving gratitude, but also receiving the gratitude. So having gratitude for things in your life, people in your life, but also touch in and tap into times when people have been grateful to you. Is very, very good. Meditation practice, of course. What we find, one of the benefits of doing getting feedback is to make wrong meditation practice right. So you're on the beam or you're off the beam to do it. So making sure you have a good meditation practice. Presence, practicing presence. So this is where you bring yourself into the moment, and a device fast, unplugging from social media or anything else that takes your attention too much outside of yourself. Cross-cultural experiences, stepping into the experience of others, and then of course being now in community is very important. We need each other. We can't do this alone. So as humans, there's no limits to our potential. There's no limits to where you can go in your mind. Can I get a witness, Una? There are no limits to where you can go in your mind. I think many of you probably know that as well. And so this is an opportunity, what External Mind does, it gives you an opportunity to step into places and experiences that are not normally available to us. And you're putting yourself in there. So you might do like ayahuasca, mushrooms, or any of the psychotropic plant medicine. But this is, you're doing it and you're teaching your brain how to get into those states and what it feels like to arrive in those. And then at the same time, have the tools and ability to manage your ego, to shift the balance, as Leonard Cohen's song says, shift the order of the soul. Make sure the soul's in charge, and our ego is the servant. useful, but not controlling. So that's all I have to say about that. Unless there's questions, I'd love to answer them. Before we do, Una, did you want to say a little bit about your experience?
Oh, sure. Well, it's really difficult to speak about it because it pops you into a space that is unknown, that we don't really have words for. And all of a sudden, you're in that big space and you're looking back onto yourself. So that ego pop that you talked about, that ego awareness, that was so cool to experience that. And maybe I can liken it to the experience of going snorkeling for the first time, and you're going underwater, and all of a sudden you have all these waves and all that noise, and you go under and it's calm and it's beautiful. You see all these colorful fish and you're in a different medium, you're in a different world. And yes, definitely happier, more joyful, calmer. Things matter less. And you just drop all those lingering shadows, those stories of the past decades that you've accumulated and that I've possibly worked on for yes, decades, but there's always a sort of a lingering thing. And this really is a burst of wow. I went back for a second time. That's how much I enjoyed it. And after that, I had my very first Kundalini experience. It's not something I desired or wanted or was looking for. It just happened. And another thing that happened was I feel younger in my brain. I feel like my intelligence has gone back to what it was as a teenager. Now, I noticed back in my 20s that my brain wasn't working as well as it was when I was a teenager. And so that was really wonderful to realize that we can reverse that. Yes, meditating the right way, it's just taken off in a completely different way, a much deeper understanding. And that calmness, I was just thinking today, it's really as though I could imagine being a Zen monk and I'm just moving through in that Zen attitude through life, and life happens, but it doesn't really do much anymore. You know.
Thank you so much, Una.
Yeah, that's about it.
Sharing.
Yeah. I do have a few questions, Alice, if I may start with asking.
Sure.
I wrote them down here. Can you talk a little bit about the connection of the heart and the brain?
Mm-hmm. So, as you know, they're linked from a metaphysical standpoint. We tend to think of the heart as more our feeling nature, and our head is more of our thinking nature, and the two actually work hand in glove. There was a guy who damaged his emotional center of his brain, and scientists ended up doing a whole field of study around it, because what happened is he couldn't make decisions. There's very much a relationship between our thinking and feeling natures that we employ every day without consciously thinking about it. However, they're completely linked in terms of our functioning abilities. So we also know that, for example, when people feel we use gratitude, for example, they shift in their brain from one state into another from that feeling of love and gratitude. We also know that when people feel anxious or angry, it also shows the shift in the brain. So, for example, when somebody's anxious, it's absolutely useless to try to reason or rationalize them out of there, because their occipital alpha has just diminished. they're not going to hear you. The best thing you can do is slow down your voice, get calm, get them to get calm. And then when they come back online, then you can reason and rationalize all you want. But in that moment, you can't. So the two work hand in glove. As we said earlier, that every experience you have as a living human being, you have an underlying pattern of brainwaves. And learning how to manage them allows you to negotiate and manage different states that you want to be in.
Thank you. And another question is, how do brainwaves carry over generationally? I have this example of anger being carried over from generation to generation to generation.
Well, I suspect that would have more with, hang on one second.
Okay.
One moment. Sorry. More behavioral. You grow up with an angry person, chances are, unless you break the pattern, you'll be angry. An interesting thing, though, a lot of my family have similar brainwaves, and there's this distinct pattern to them. But when you look at them, it's similar and recognizable. And I've seen that over the years as well, that you'll have different family members come, sons and mothers or fathers and daughters. You'll see a common pattern.
Mm-hmm. And are there any health benefits to this?
That we could never claim.
Okay. Yes, but probably another experience I've had is, as I'm watching what happens in my life after my first 5 days, I noticed that many circles of people were falling away from my life, and it just happened all by itself. And at the same time, of course, new doors opened, new people came into my life. Connection with my family has improved. Yeah, I guess that's the other parts I can share. There was a question in the chat that I'd like to relate.
Sure.
How do you take care of individuality? I'm translating as I'm talking here. How do you take care of the individuality of the people? That not all brains work the same way.
Oh, for sure. Like, no one's brain works the same, and you wouldn't want it to. For example, I always tell people, like, I don't want my heart surgeon to have really high alpha, because he'll probably leave the scissors in. I want somebody who's able to be detailed. In other words, not me. So everybody is unique. You can't compare one person's brainwaves to another person's. So when we look at your EEG, and there's gifts and everything. So you might have a deficit here, but it helps you. Like, that's part of your wiring. So, for example, we had a woman who had a really attuned. She was a musician, and she had a very attuned left temporal for music, for sound. You will, even though there were some negatives to having that, she wouldn't change that for anything. She learns to deal with the cognitive things that she needed to deal with in a different way, but she wanted to retain that essence. It's like the guy whose his coherence was hyper coherence, like really strong. I showed you with the red lines. He used that all his life. It was a skill he had. He needed to learn how to navigate to go in and out of it better, to be able to shut it off when it didn't need it, and be able to turn it on when he did. So yeah, everybody's unique in their brainwaves, and that's how it's approached.
Yeah, great. Another question is, where does this all stem from? I did some research, and I believe there was a time when researching alpha waves was not permitted. Is that true?
That's correct. So it was 18 something or other that Hans Burger from, I think it was Austria, or German, first discovered. He was looking, his sister was clairvoyant and had psychic abilities, and he was trying to figure out why she had that ability. And in his exploration, he discovered the alpha wave. Theta is more the wave that would be her specialty, but the alpha is what he discovered first, and then it was born. The 60s, of course, with the explosion of a new wave of consciousness came. The Nixon government tried to shut down the neurofeedback. And then, of course, it's now quite prevalent everywhere, a lot of research, a lot of study, neuroscience. This is the age of consciousness. So you can see a lot of well, we've already seen the explosion of the brain research, the information about the brain, consciousness, all of that is happening. And it's a good lid not to put back on.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing this work. I know it's very special and it's not done, in many places, but you do have a setup where you can travel.
So my home base is Victoria, and my goal is to spread this around the world. And as we've seen in the world, that more consciousness is definitely being called, or we're being called. So I do pop up in different places. I was in New York, I'm going to Florida. And then Una, we're going to do something in Europe and in Nairobi.
Yes. So what does it take for you to be able to come to Europe? Now, I think one thing that is important, there's only 3 spaces per week. Is that correct? Mm-hmm. And there's 2 of you, you come with a technician. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's very personalized, private facilitation, and so on. Yeah, I suppose if anybody's interested, let us know. We have a few more questions. Matt, would you like to unmute?
Una, hi, can you hear me okay?
I can. Good to see you, Matt.
And you too. I apologize for missing yesterday. I had some grandson duty I had to cover, so I'm gonna do my homework and catch up. Alice, thank you so much. Have you noticed, or are you aware of any correlation of those humans who have had either pre-birth or near-death experiences? And there are some humans that have had more than one near-death experience, in a correlation between brain waves after they've had those experiences, and either a primary correlation or a secondary correlation, if they have more conscious control, that after such an experience, they can get to a certain brainwave state a lot faster than before the experience. And thank you.
Sorry, Matthew, I'm going to cut you off. I have no experience with I haven't seen any studies, and I haven't worked with anybody in that situation.
Okay, so you can't help with my confusion.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for entertaining the question.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. Maybe you can talk about the spiritual experiences that people have.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So don't tell anybody, but this is a spiritual program. So a lot of people come and have no idea, and of course they're going to experience something spiritual, wonderful. So people have Kundalini experiences. I remember one guy, he said to me, he had a Kundalini experience. I showed him on the EEG what that looked like. And he came in the next day and said, hey, I talked to my friend and he said what happened yesterday was a really big deal. And I said, yeah, it is. He said, well, you didn't act like it. And I looked at him and he said, oh, I get it. Around here it's a Tuesday. So it's part of the experience, so that people can have Kundalini experience and have an out-of-body experience. They have experiences. Somebody recently came and this is common, but she was blown away how she walked into her childhood home and visited, and it was more real than real. Like she had entered into that state where she walked into the past. People have visitors, high spiritual beings, people have gone on before them. People have these wonderful experiences of oneness, merging, unconditional love. The list goes on. It's endless. As unique as we all are, we all have our own experiences. We have people whose future life showed up, or past lives unfurled for them. So yeah, some really incredible things happen. And this is you're putting yourself into these expanded states, and you're doing it using the feedback, as well as getting the stuff that's holding you back, getting the stuff that's interfering of you being your maximum self, dissolving that so that you have access to more. Your container gets bigger. Yeah.
Thank you. That's exactly how it feels, what it feels like. Yes, Dada, would you like to unmute, please?
Hi, Una. Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much. That's incredibly interesting to me. I've done some biofeedback healing in the past in Vancouver. I'm not sure if you actually are aware of Dr. Swingle and his clinic in Vancouver. And I am curious to find out as to how does your work within those 5 days progresses, and what exactly are you actually doing? Is it some similar to what he does, or how does it work? Would you be?
I'm not sure what he does, but I'll tell you what happens is you're doing protocols and techniques tied to the technology, so that you're doing it at the level of the brainwave. So you're going in, for example, one of the things is forgiveness. It's a forgiveness protocol that's tied to the technology. So you're going wherever you are holding anything to yourself or others, and you're shifting it. So it's like you're taking it out by the root. That's where I talked about there's, the cognitive versus, the identity. So making that dramatic shift. The but the protocols, for example, the frequencies, the timing, the everything is less and so to set you up to have this experience, to have a spirit. The whole idea is to get you to pop out of your skin encapsulated ego. If it's 30 seconds, 3 hours, whatever it is, to have you have that experience, and then change that relationship to yourself so that you're much more of a human being, kind, loving, joyful. And the thing is, once you have that, it moves from a thought about something to actually knowing. So a lot of people have a thought about this or that. And matter of fact, a lot of people come in, I'm pretty good. Yeah, I'm done a lot of forgiveness, It's like, okay, great, good. And then they go, oh, I didn't realize I could go to this level and go in, right, and take it out by the root. And then when it's gone, it's gone.
Mm-hmm. So Alice, is the technology responding to what I want to work on, or is it by the brainwave map? How does it work?
Okay, so you're using the feedback to change your brain. That's what you're doing. So I use the analogy of the voice. All of a sudden it's like, oh, I can do. And now it's like the feedback to allow yourself to get yourself into more of an expanded state. And in the process, we're targeting belief systems, issues, traumas, and we all have them, that get in your own way. And those are things that you're shifting. So the side effect is you have a great insight, you have great new awareness, you have higher your intuition goes up, etc., because you're now having more access to yourself, the truth of who you are.
Yeah, and I think it's you do get to say what you want and what you don't want, and at the same time, your brain map is being analyzed.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a combination of the analysis and being led to, because the ego can get in the way, and it will keep you from doing what you need to. I've definitely had that experience. I am one of these cases. I knew there was something I needed to let go of and forgive. Now, I've done forgiveness all my life, yes, but it took me 3 days to do forgiveness the way Alice told me to do it. And then I popped. Then something shifted in me.
Interesting.
Then a lot just cleared and drifted away.
I always say that resistance is futile. So you come in and yes, there'll be resistance, and it's like, I don't care. You will get through it. That's the facilitator's role, is to make sure that you're going to get the most out of it. So, you have absolute permission to hate me for 3 days, but I know on day 5, you're going to love me.
Alice, is there a need for 5 days? Is it always 5 days for some reason? Is there a reason for it?
Yeah.
Why 5 days?
It takes 5.
Okay.
There's also the first thing is to learn. So you teach your brain to learn, and then you want to retain it so that you go to the world, you have the retention of it. We've experimented with 3 days, and we can't get you there.
Okay.
Maybe there'll be a new technology that comes into play in the future. However, any workshop you go to, any experience, Vipassana, for example, is a 10-day retreat, is usually on the 3rd day the ego kicks in. So if you made it shorter, you would never people wouldn't be able to bust through. They wouldn't be able to make the shift. It's like some people can shift on day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, it doesn't matter. But the idea of the 5 days is you're going to teach your brain, and then you're going to retain it, that you can go into the world, and there's latency in the training, so your brain continues to wire for 3 to 6 months. So we don't take another brain map at the end of the week. First of all, you're going to be tired, but also we want to see what happens when you finish wiring. And then we'll do another brain map and see where you're at.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Beautiful explanation. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Eva Maria.
Okay, first of all, hi to everybody. We are Piliaka and Eva Maria from Germany. And
Hello.
Hi, Alice.
Hi. Good to see you.
Hi. Nice to see you. I have 2 questions, Alice, if I may.
Yes.
The first question is, do you interview the people how they reflect themselves before you do this EEG, or do you just go in with a EEG and they don't give you a self or Einschätzung?
Yeah.
Assessment.
Assessment, yeah.
It's combined. So we look at your EEG, and then we have a dialogue with you as well. Because you're an important part of it, right? What you experience is key. So the brain map is a data point, and then woven with your experience of life, and then we look at it and come up with a solution together in terms of where you want to work. On the targeted CAP training, where we're looking at your weaknesses and changing them, or if you don't have weaknesses and looking at your strength and enhancing them. And then the other part is really, you're the big part of the equation, in terms of doing what's going to be important for you. Your facilitator is going to make sure that we're not entertaining your ego. We're looking at the part of you that is
real,
the integrated self, if you will, lack of a better word. So yeah, you're very much part of the whole experience.
Yes, and the second question was, when is the next training, or where do you offer the next training? We were thinking about.
Yeah, the next training, the Florida trainings are all full. The next training is the end of March, 1st of April in Victoria. And then, Una, do you have the dates for May in Europe and the dates for Africa?
Yes, one moment. We were looking at May 20 to May 31, so these 2 weeks. So you could sign up for one of these weeks. There's only 3 spaces, so just be aware of that. And then we were looking at June 10 to June, what would that be, 24, so 2 weeks in Nairobi or Kenya at least. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And where is it in Europe?
Where would you like it?
We're looking at potentially Germany, or Poland, or Croatia. Yeah, we're fine tuning that. I love Europe. I love going to Europe. I love Germany. So we thought we would meet and do something there.
Or to ask, what do you need when you come?
In terms of space?
Yeah, everything. Space and
actually the pop-up model is really quite so I decided to forego bricks and mortar. That's not the way I want to live my life. So the pop-up model turns out quite easy. So I did a stint in New York, and they had one big room and a little small ante room with a little small kitchen and a bathroom. It could be renting a big Airbnb with enough space for 3 people to stay, and facility, really comfortable chairs to do the rest, all the feedback and stuff, and the cap and whatnot. So it's really about space, but we can, if you're interested, we can figure that out. We can talk about that.
yeah, we are thinking of. Yeah.
Mhm.
We
We have a we have a question in the chat. You're not thinking of coming to the UK? Well,
so far, no invitations to the UK.
if we have 3 people in the UK, we'll go there.
Possibly, or come to Victoria. It's beautiful, or Toronto.
Yeah, it's definitely for anybody who can't wait, go to Victoria. It is beautiful. I went there twice, and not that I got to see much of it.
No,
because you just sort of cocoon in that expanded state. You don't want to go out, or I didn't.
So you can come for once. It's going to change your life. That's all you need is one. Some people, though, myself included, all of a sudden it's like, oh, you want to play more on the edges of your own consciousness, on the edges of your own awareness. So you might want to come back for more. However, one is really life-changing, and that expression gets so used. This is incredible. So in the science, in the studies that we've done in this field that I've been a part of, we looked at what happened when people did the training, and it was really quite phenomenal. So people had significant increase in income. They started companies, or if they had companies, they expanded, got promotions, changed. 20% went off to higher education. These are adults who all of a sudden were going back to university, or going to university for the first time. All of a sudden you have the capacity for more. So it's not like not the driven, oh, I gotta do this. The unfolding. It's like, oh, I want to do that. I'm exploring this. I'm wanting more of that. Again, your capacity changes so that you have more. Relationships improved significantly. Yeah. So life still happens. Like, things go on, but the you that is experiencing life is upgraded, changed.
Yeah, I I've done so much in my life, and this, I wish I'd done this first, because I would have been so much better at all the other things I'd experienced had I done this training first. It would have saved me a lot of time and energy and money. So yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see. Eva Maria Piljaca, is there anything else? Did you want to ask anything else, or do you have your questions covered?
Nej, men nej. Wait.
Is it better to do it at home, where you can do your homework at home concerning the community part, if you have to serve or do something to serve the community, or do the meditation? If I travel somewhere else, then I think about maybe my homework is not so intense as I try to do it at home, this training, because I can the homework means that the whole 5 days is in a special energy, where I just concentrate my energy on the focus of training my awareness. And if I am in Canada or something, or in Nairobi, then I'm thinking that maybe I cannot concentrate so much on my focus as
You don't need to worry about that.
So
Yeah,
the idea
it's
is
not
that
that kind of, yeah.
there's no homework,
okay.
and processing is a dirty word. It doesn't matter where you are. But however, if we are in your home city, we recommend that you, especially if you live with others, to stay at the retreat or somewhere else, so that you can absorb yourself 100% in the experience. What we found, like for example, in Victoria, of people, they would end up joining the Airbnb or somewhere else so that they could really be there and make the profound shift. Remember, you're changing your brain as much as somebody who's done advanced Zen meditation for 20 to 40 years. So you're making huge changes in a very short time. So we tell people to, if they have work to do, lighten up their workload for that week. We say, if you have a fractious relationship, maybe avoid talking to them for that week, and let yourself be there. We've had some cool things happen where people will have not talked to somebody for 20 years. They'll be in the program. Also, that person will text out of the blue, "Hey, we haven't talked for 20 years. Let's connect." So this experience is quite profound, and you would want to stay in your own energy as much as possible.
Yes, thank you. We have no more questions. Yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
I can just
Una.
share. Yes, my experience was I had to answer a few emails. I squeezed the second time. I just squeezed it into all the things I was doing, my travels, etc. And I really did not want to be on the internet. I just did not want to do that. So yeah. Okay, thank you. Good to see you, and Eva Maria.
Thank you.
Sasha, would you like to unmute?
Yes, hello everybody. My question is more related to the general program. So in regards to expansion, so what's the future plans for your program? Do you train other people to provide the technology throughout the world, or what's the plan?
That's the plan. That's the plan. Yeah.
Okay. You have kind of an outlook, an idea you can share already?
We can talk offline, but that is the big, hairy, audacious goal for sure.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Sasha. Ruth, good to see you.
Oh, hello, everybody. It's lovely to see so many of you. Yeah. I am so excited about this work you're doing, Alice. I have so many questions. I am working with psilocybin at this point with people, and it seems like there's a lot of commonalities between these therapies. And I'm just wondering if you've done any studies or had any connection with any of this, or I'm just curious about
So, yeah, so the brainwave changes that occur when somebody does mushrooms or ayahuasca, those are the two that I'm most familiar with,
Mhm.
mirror what's happening with the advanced Zen meditators, intermediate. So that same progression. And it's the same progression that you're making with this program. Couple challenges. So for most people, and the science is pretty strong on this, there is a positive outcome from doing psychedelics. However, the problem comes when it's not monitored, so that people, for example, with high anxiety, sometimes it helps their anxiety, but sometimes it can exacerbate it. So not seeing the person's brain, and you're changing the brain, but you don't know if it's reinforcing a negative mechanism or it's changing it into the positive mechanism. So you're not able to really see what's going on in that regards. The idea of this is that you're putting yourself in those states. So a lot of people compare their experiences like a psychedelic where say your future self shows up, or you're having an out-of-body experience, or whatever the case may be. It's teaching your brain how to access those spaces, those places. But yeah, it's good work what's happening now with the consciousness with plant medicines.
Yeah.
And I totally appreciate what you're saying. It's, much better controlled in the work that you're doing. Go ahead, Una.
Yes, it's what I've learned in those 2 weeks that I did the externalized mind program was I can do it by myself. I can decide to go into alpha. I can decide to go into gamma because I want to manifest something, because I want an answer to something, because I need to shift something in me.
I love that. It's really special. That's really amazing. That's the ultimate goal. That's the freedom you were talking about, which is what we're working towards. I'm wondering if, what about people with different degrees of dementia?
So we have found, and there's not enough study, this is from our experience, that it does reverse brain aging. The oldest guy I worked with was 89. My father came when he was 80. So it does reverse brain aging. And I have worked with somebody who had dementia. He had Alzheimer's. And it was one of the most profound experiences because it was too late to reverse it. But during the morning, he would be full on Alzheimer's. By the evening, after a full day session, he could tell us what it was like to have Alzheimer's. We got to hear the internal mechanism for himself. He talked about how all his friends disappeared. They never came to see him anymore. So somebody was home the whole time. The lights were on. And then in the morning, it would be as if the lights were not on anymore. But he was able, there was somebody at home this whole time. That was profound to me to witness that. It was really quite incredible. But if you can get them, brain health early.
Great. And so I need to organize, I'm just thinking of organizing a retreat or coming to visit you. Who knows how it will unfold, but get 3 people who are interested and a space that is comfortable. Is that the
well, it depends. There's only so much traveling that I actually can send other people as well. I have other facilitators. So the minimum is somewhere 2 weeks because you need the 2 weeks to at least pay for travel and stuff. So there have to be
good. Okay.
Or coming up here is easy peasy from California.
Great. And okay, so I can contact you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Oh, yeah. It's wonderful to see everybody.
Yes.
There's a question on here about allows you to remove 100%. 100%. So changing your vibration. Again, remember that you're changing yourself at the very level of your identity. And, you know, I understand this is a special group. It's all about vibration. So changing your vibration, removing those blockages, the ones that you don't even know are there. And letting go of the things that are holding you back frees up so much more space within you. And that is definitely a wonderful side effect, an incredible side effect.
Yeah. Corinne, you had some questions too, didn't you? Corinne,
Yes.
my fabulous technician and good friend.
Thanks so much, Alice. Appreciate you being here. Yeah, a few questions have popped up. So as you were explaining, and I have a interest in brainwave states, and there seems to be an emphasis on the alpha. Is there a calibration to the alpha, or is that right? Or is it just sort of calibrating them all?
Well, you have all different ones, depending on what state. For example, Kundalini, you have this big increase in alpha, and then it completely drops out, and you have delta take over, and then gamma. So those are distinct patterns. If you're sleeping, you're going to be more, depending on what sleep mode you're in, but there'll be more delta or what. So every experience is going to shift into different ones. The reason we talk about alpha is it's our more awakened state. We have beta brain. If you have too much beta, you're going to be maybe under a lot of stress, anxiety, rumination, whatever. And the alpha is about more relaxation, love, all those kind of things. So yeah, you're going in and out of different predominant brainwave patterns all the time. So, but we start with more on the alpha. It's the easiest one to teach you how to move around. And
Gotcha.
the most benefit we can get out of you for that week.
Okay, great.
Different trainings, different but everybody starts at learning that one because that's the easiest one to learn.
Okay, great. Thank you. And also, we were talking about retention, and after 3 to 6 months, there's sort of a scan just to see where the wiring has gone. What have you found about long-term retention? And one of the things you said, because you're really going to the root. So how is retention in the long term?
So I haven't seen any studies in terms of the brain itself over the long term, but I participated in a study we did where we looked at people when they did the training, and then what happened, 6 months, 1 year, 3 years out. And that's when you start seeing what changed in your life.
Okay.
The people
Right.
going to university, the people starting businesses, the people with relationships.
Yeah. And I can imagine it takes time for these things to come up and surface, and then come into a person's life. Yeah. Okay. My last question is, and I'm sure you have experienced many sessions, but what would you say was the most profound session for you?
Like me personally?
That you have in working with people.
Oh, what I witnessed?
Yes.
I've had a front row seat in some remarkable journeys that people have made. I can't pick one out. I just know that it never gets old. When you sit with somebody on day 1 and you see who surfaces on day 5. I remember this is not the most remarkable. I'll just share a few stories.
Sure.
I remember one woman, she was around 60 something, and she was on high blood pressure medication. And she came bouncing on day 3 and said, "That's it. I don't want to be happy. I've always been unhappy. We both know I've always been unhappy. And I just want to be unhappy. I don't want to be happy." And I said, "Oh, okay. Well, drop your belief system. And on day 5, you can pick up your belief system all you want. But right now, just stay with it." So, okay. So on day 5, she's got this big smile, her lights in her eyes. She's very, very happy. And I said, hey, it's day 5. Do you want to take your unhappiness? Oh my God, no. She was so afraid of change. She was familiar with what she knew and she didn't want to make the change. And then of course, our job is to make sure that you keep going. And she did it. She had an experience. She had been on high blood pressure medication since she was 17, and she went home and the doctor took her off it. She didn't need it anymore. There's been some remarkable stories. It's why I'm still doing it. It's why I have such passion and joy about it. It's the fastest, quickest thing I've ever seen to make radical, beneficial change, so that you have more access to who you are, more love, more joy. And to come to, eventually you'll come to a point and realize that you've never been hurt. No one's ever hurt you. Not to minimize when somebody is feeling hurt or pain or whatever the case may be, but to be able to make that shift and have access to that person who's always existed within you is revolutionary in terms of living a happier, better, fulfilled life.
And you mentioned earlier,
you have choice.
Thank you. You mentioned earlier one of the benefits for you was having a quiet mind, and is that, and sort of similarly with other people, the sort of more profound effects that I'm sure, because you have done this to yourself, what has that been for you?
The quiet mind. So people will experience quieter minds. But not having monkey mind is, I hardly remember what it was like, but not having that monkey mind is liberating, and getting to choose what you want to think about it, or if you don't want to think. Not all the time, most of the time, is liberating. Absolute freedom, in my opinion.
Yeah. Great. Thanks so much, Alice. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And you don't necessarily need to wait, long term, 3 years for things to happen. For me, after the first week, 2 weeks after the first week, my perfect living space turned up. Eva Maria, you have one more question.
Okay, I have another question. What is the youngest on age you would accept for this training?
12.
12. Oh, that's good. Okay, and this is one question.
15 is better, but 12. Nothing younger than that.
Okay, probably my daughter, my middle daughter, would be interested, and it would be very good for her. And another question is there a special part you work with the pineal gland in this training? Pineal gland?
You're not working. I do focus on that for myself, but it's not, you don't target specific. Well, there's different spiritual centers in the brain where you can connect with and play with. But there's nothing specific about the pineal that we do.
Thank you. That is it.
Well, thank you everybody for having been here. Thank you, Alice, for a wonderful, wonderful talk.
Thanks for having me, Una and Corrine. Much appreciated. And thank everybody for coming and having a listen. You can connect with me, Alice at externalizedmind.com. Actually, I'll type it in. There's no E. It's not EX. I thought I was being clever, but it can be very confusing, I think. There's the website, and it's Alice at externalizedmind.com. Hopefully I typed that correctly. Yeah.
Yep, great. We'll close it. We've been on for 1.5 hours. Thank you, everyone. I'll just stop the recording.